Happy Independence Day, Happy Independence Day, Happy Independence Day, Happy Independence Day. There had to be a song today.
I have a different word, a different name for today.
Oh, what's your day? What's your name?
Oh,
Is it
it's shoot tyrants in the face day.
okay. That sounds like a very John Willis name for today.
Yeah, that's a T-shirt.
It's taking off. I keep seeing it all over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're here live for Independence Day, and it is a live stream with Tag from Life Done Free and John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee, and I'm coming to you live from Wheaton Labs in Montana. Behind me, you see all this stuff? That's a seed bank they have in their library. They're letting me use their library today for this live stream. I'm probably annoying the person who wishes it was quiet in here, but he's being very kind to me. And
are you in the ground right now?
No, I am above ground in what used to be a garage that was converted into a library and a bunkhouse. And they have a rocket mass heater like right over there, over in the corner for heating this place in the winter. And something they did that's pretty cool on the outside of it is they've stacked all their wood, so it's like a little extra mass there. And so there's like cords and cords of wood around the outside of this. They have cats all over the place, and rather than letting the cats in the winter, they've built like access ports for the cats to come in with little glass cat rooms up on the ceiling, so the cats can come in and benefit from the heat generated by the rocket mass heater. So yeah, there's a lot of I'm really glad it came. I haven't seen everything yet, but the hugel mounds are huge. So I've been up on those, checking out how they grow food. And
that's what he said when he was out here last time. He said, okay, we have to bulldoze all of it. Well, not a bulldozer. He wants you to do it by hand.
Yeah.
All of this has to go. And we're going to build 9-foot tall hugel mounds. And basically, like fighting, we will look like it looks like in Ukraine right now, in Russia. We'll just do trench warfare. And he said, you got to get rid of all these, and you got to get rid of all these pine trees. They're all toxic.
Yeah. And you didn't do that, did you?
Though it's stuck in my head though. Every time I'm out there on the 4-wheeler every morning, I think nothing grows where these pine trees are. There actually is something to that. Blueberries are growing really well on that side, but nothing else grows there.
We got spots on our land.
You're getting acid.
I would say we do the same thing. We've got spots that some things grow and some things don't. And every year we learn to adapt that position a little bit better.
Nature abhors a void. That's something Spirko said, and it has. I find myself saying it all the time. You better put something there because Mother Nature will put something there, and it's not going to be what you want.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of like earlier this week. Last week, I was thinking about how we get information overload and don't make decisions. Not making a decision is a decision, and it's usually not the decision you would have made if you would have just made up your mind about something. Yep. And so I think like culturally we're training we're programming people to not make decisions, to submit to the overwhelm that's in our lives. And then they just end up where they end up rather than, at least I chose to be in this place I don't want to be.
Paralysis through analysis. And I think a lot of that is by design, right? How do you get somebody to not act? And if they don't act, then they are reliant on you more so, or somebody, they're not reliant. You no longer mind. We no longer mind because you no longer matter.
Yeah. So if there is a lag, guys, it's probably because I'm out in the wilds of Montana, and I apologize. I'm seeing a couple of little bounces here and there. If I disappear, you guys are in charge of the live stream without me until I can get back on. So that could happen as well. But okay, so it's Independence Day, and I thought we talk around freedom all the time on this. Let's talk about freedom. Freedom is a 4-letter word for some people, but something that strikes me about freedom, and I was talking to Tag about this before we jumped on, is it's a lot easier than people think. Like opting out of the system and owning your future is a lot easier, like from a simplicity standpoint, than people think. What do you guys think of that idea?
Well, I think on my end, I think it's such a, I'm evolving as time wears on, right? As I go down this journey more and more and more, searching to be free, I'm learning more and more about how freedom really is nothing more than the ability to live life according to your terms, whatever that is. And for some, for everybody, that's different. Although I do agree with Nicole that it's easy, I will also tell you that it's very inconvenient. And the inconvenience part, I mean, it is inconvenient. There's nothing convenient about it, because if you truly want to live free, it means you're doing everything for yourself. Or in my definition of freedom is that doing everything for yourself. So although I do agree easy, I would also caution everybody just to say that, hey, it's super, super, super inconvenient. Because I look at it in a weird way. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, while it's 105 degrees and we don't want to be outside in the summer, if you're not outside in the summer, you're going to be very, very cold when it's 0 degrees this winter, right? I use you as an example all the time. I said there's two opposites. There's two far edges of homesteading and prepping, and that's one. It's people that prep and it's that little house on the prairie kind of lifestyle, right? They've got that little tiny plot of land. And everything they do, they produce for themselves, and they never leave and they never go outside. And then there's that other side where successful business person has enough money to completely go off grid. And that's how I want to live, right? I want that 4,600 square foot home that is not even connected. When somebody walks into your home, they don't go, oh, this place is off grid. They have no idea. No. The faucet has great water pressure. It's always warm. It's always cold. And you were able to design that. And by doing so and coming from where you came from and doing it in the manner you did it in, you're able to make all those videos and put that message out there. You don't have to do it, like you're coming across the prairie in a covered wagon. It doesn't have to be living in those hardships.
Nope. No, if you didn't see my solar system out front, like let's just say you couldn't see that part and you walked in my house, you would not know. I have every amenity anybody else has. I mean, I'm sitting on the 3rd story right now in the beautiful air conditioning, looking out over my farm. So you don't have to skimp. You can do it in a manner that you don't have to sacrifice those comforts. But here's the flip side, is that you're the plumber. You're the electrician. I'm everything. There is nobody to call since I have no utilities, right? So that's the downside to it. And that's, again, what I meant by being inconvenient.
And because you built it, you know where those pipes are. You know how that, like when we put this building together, we did a lot of our stuff in catwalks. We have chases upstairs that we can physically walk to. The power comes in upstairs, pulls downstairs. We didn't put any drywall in here with the thought that if we ever had to pull this 4x8 sheet of plywood off, we could do that ourselves and replace it ourselves. And it's worked. I'm pleased with it. I like the way that it worked out. As Nicole was saying, it's not that hard. It's just one bite at a time. It's like when you get people always ask me, what should I do when I buy property? Plant trees. Well, I don't know where I want them. Well, plant 100 of them. One of them is going to be where you wanted it, and you're going to be so glad that you planted that tree 5 years ago. Just start. Put some dirt in a container. Well, I don't have containers. Put them in feed bags. You have feed bags. Put dirt in something. Put something in the dirt. Even if it's just practice, just plant something. I am literally still right now planting garden every single day. I'm putting more plants and more plants and more plants every day. And we're not harvesting everything all at once in canning, but we're harvesting a lot in canning, and we're going to continue to do that. And I have an example of it. In October, when people come here, they're going to see a ton of stuff growing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring the tree example up, because early on in my journey where I live now at the Holler Homestead, I saw this tree that looked a lot like a weed tree that you need to get out of there, which is the tree of heaven. And something in me said, but it's a little different. It turned out it was a black walnut, and it was about as tall as I was. Now, 15 years later, so 13 years in, it was twice as tall as anything, any of the housing on my place. And we were doing heavy equipment work, and the dump truck's brakes went out, and it came careening down the hill, and it hit that tree, which stopped it. And had it not hit that tree, it would have taken out an expensive truck and an entire building. So just by so when you say that about being thankful the tree was there, yeah, I'm thankful I realized that was a tree that I should just let grow where it was growing, and it saved a building. And,
Did you
it dropped
say
all its leaves after it did that, but it's still alive.
did you say it ended up being a walnut? Is that what you said it was?
It's a black walnut. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Is
Yeah,
my internet figgly?
they say if you plant those, you're 40 years from harvest on a walnut for veneer and such. That's big generational wealth.
Yeah.
People plant pine. When you're driving down the road and you see these beautiful rows of pine trees, 15 years is paper pulp and 30 years is poles. And if you have all that edge of property, guys are like, what do I do with this? I'm like, put it in pine. You're never going to wish you hadn't. And then when you're driving down the road in the fall and you go, oh, I didn't know that castle was back there. The reason you know that is because there's not pine trees right here. If you plant that barrier, it's so quiet back there. And if you ever need to cut it, and if you can plant multi-acres of width down that way, when you cut that first row or second row, you still have that third, fourth, fifth, sixth while they replant. So you've always got those there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also fun to think about. Like I was talking with Tag about going off grid. I bought a place that was on grid. There was no reason to go off grid. And I spent the first 13 years taking things off of the power grid that you do not need electricity to get the function that they serve out of, like heat, making water hot, cooking my food. All of these things can be done a different way. Only after that stuff was peeled off electrical service did we start thinking about solar panels, batteries, and all of that stuff. So that's another thing where people think, well, I can't afford to go off grid. Well, choose one thing that takes power right now and figure out how to make it so it does not take power.
Plus we were able to watch you do that, Nicole. Like you put that system in and it's scalable. So to double that system, it doesn't cost twice as much as what you already have there. You can just keep going. And with the system that you put in, that Sean put in just a few months ago, you said you can run anything on, you can't run everything. You can run everything on the property, but you can't run everything at once on the property. And when do we do that? I'm in a 16,000 foot building right now. And I go around, I'm like, turn this off. Why is this on? We're not even going to be in there for, 30 days. Why is this running?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny how much we do that. Like I realized when I was growing up, it was every light goes off the second you leave the room to keep the power bill down. The heat was kept at 55 degrees and we had a wood stove, and at night you were very cold because the heat was off. And I went from that into I will turn all the lights on wherever I am and leave them on all the time. And I had to re-examine those habits after I realized, that's really kind of stupid. And we can do things different ways. But, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's interesting about that, Nicole, is I went from on the grid, right, in my normal, back when I was running, doing my normal thing, to where I watched the electricity and I did those things. And now life's really changed a lot in that there are some days I look at my wife and say, use it. We're dumping power. We're not using what we're bringing in. What can you be doing right now? Blow up the air conditioners, cool everything off because I've got so much energy coming in, I cannot use it. So it's funny how you go from on the grid, I'm worried about my electric bill, to off the grid, what do I do with all this freaking power? So like a total flip, like you wouldn't think that, but there are days where it is like, go, 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 baby. What can you waste electricity on? Go.
Well, like laundry, vacuuming, all of it.
All of it.
Do you have 12 volt circuitry in the house, Tag? No. So everything's 110 and up converts?
Yep. Yeah, my system's a 48 volt system, so it just converts from 48 volt, and then I have 300 amp service. So it comes into the house, I can do anything I want to on it. But it's just interesting how there's some days, in the wintertime, for example, we would get into a red day, and in that red day, we're doing the minimums. TV.
Do you have trackers? Do you have motor heads on your panel? Poles
they're manual. So mine, I built mine myself, and so they can move to 4 positions for the 4 seasons.
It seems so cool when they're marketing it. It seems so cool to have that, but I've never met a person that has that, and they're like, "Yeah, it's the deal." The guys I know, like yourself, you just adjust them, through the year.
4 times a year. That's it. I don't really mess with mine. And there's times I even skip one of the times. because I just don't get put in. I get so much power. I mean, like right now, I'll bet you I'm dumping. I bet you I have enough power right now. I could be running 2 or 3 more other houses right now at this second. I just don't have anywhere to do with power. I've got a buddy of mine who's a double PhD. He's got a PhD in electrical engineering and another one in physics. And him and I are working on, well, him and I ain't doing shit. He's working on figuring out how to take that excess power and what we can do with it. And so he's working on some optimizers and some, whether it's using super caps or whatever. Anyway, I don't want to bore everybody, but sometimes
it's not boring.
So sometimes living off the grid, you have the total opposite problem, which is you have too much of it and you're trying to figure out what to do with it, which is weird.
Yeah, the surplus thing is fun because when you're growing food or making your own power or anything, there are times when you have surplus, and you've just reminded me I'm not home using my solar water heater, and I need to tell Tactical to stop turning. What'll happen is it'll get too hot and it will blow off.
Yep.
So, I mean, I have a valve for that, but if I just stop circulating the water through it, it will be fine. So right now I probably have way too much hot water at my house.
But the things you can do with that, there's sand batteries, there's water batteries, but think about it. Let's think about it on a simplistic perspective. Let's say you put a 10,000 gallon water tank up at your garden and you've got a big pond in your backyard like I have. If I have a day with super excess energy, let's pump water all day. Let's get all the tanks filled. Let's use it up, because again, if you're not using it, you're just not using it.
He's got my back. I'm using her hot water.
Yep.
He's in your bathtub right now.
I don't want to think about that.
Yeah,
I mean, the laundry uses a lot too.
Charlie wanted to know if I was grid tied, and no, I am not grid tied, nor will I ever be.
You just you got to put all those Tesla chargers out on the front drive on the roadway there, so they can all come from Target over there to you.
Well, that's cool.
Well, it's fun when we talk about topics like this with people who are living the life, right? Because I hadn't thought about the like we dump our extra solar too, right? Now that we have it. But I haven't even put thought into when I have too much hot water, can I heat sink that somewhere and have it heat the house later?
You can.
Because I'm here at Wheaton Labs where he does that. He puts heat underground in the summer, and all winter he has it. Likewise, they have a building I'll see later. It'll be, 90 degrees out, and it will be cool in that building when we walk in that building.
Yeah.
So what does it actually, what does it actually mean to dump the power tag?
Yeah, so it just basically means that you're not. So when the solar panel, and I try to explain, I'm going to explain this in a super simple way in case anyone's not tracking. So all a solar panel is a battery charger. That's it, right? It's collecting energy. The more solar panels you have, the faster it will charge, or the more power you get in a low light condition, overcast skies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because even with the tiniest bit of light, they're charging. So then your batteries really are nothing more than how long do you want to go without power? Right? Because the fact of the matter, I can disconnect my batteries and run everything I'm running in my house right now. But as soon as the sun goes down, that's no longer the case, right? My inverters are simply nothing more than how much power do I want to the house? What ability do I want to have? So when I talk about dumping power, what it means is take any space left off of my batteries, because they're now topped off, but yet the sun's still coming. Then the power in the house, I'm using 2,000 watts, whatever it is, but I'm bringing in 12, let's just say. So all that excess energy is just not being utilized. So it's just gone. They're just sitting out there. So you're not really dumping it like you're sending it somewhere. It just means you're not being able to absorb it. You're not being able to take it from the panels. I guarantee I could quadruple my battery bank, and I have a huge battery bank, and I would still have excess power. The problem is batteries is where the money is. The system.
Yeah.
I have 38.
Yeah, the batteries cost more than my panels in my system.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got $25,000 in my battery bank. I have less than that in the rest of my system.
Got it.
It's ridiculous. I wish I knew now what I knew back then, because there's technology out there now. I could do the same thing for half the cost.
You're involved in a company doing battery storage, right?
Yep. Yeah, I bought into a company called Grid Down, and they just sell whole house plug and play solar systems. And they're really kind of cool because they're all commissioned at the factory. And so you're really plugging in panels on one side and the house on the other, and that's the end of it. So,
Right on.
yeah, so
That's
cool.
really nice.
Is there social media for them?
What do we got? I think we've got a Facebook page now. The website's up. So griddown.com is up. I'm still working on, I'll take kind of a silly story. And I don't want to totally hijack this, Nicole, but so when I got into the conversation with the places I was going to source the stuff. Yeah, right there. When I got into this conversation, one thing that the system needed was it needed the internet because it used an app to monitor the system. So like if you wanted to look at how many watts you were bringing in or what your load was or where's your batteries, it needed the app, which means it needed the internet. And so we went round and round and round. I said, guys, I can't have this because you're going to be talking to people like me. It's just not going to, I'm telling you, it's not going to work. If you want to make it where you have to hook up one time, fine. I can live with that. But if it's the only way to monitor it was with no monitor or no Bluetooth or whatever, this isn't going to work. And so we went back and forth and I finally got them to install a Bluetooth in it. So now with the Bluetooth, you can use your own system. You don't have to get on the internet to monitor your system. So anyway, that's what the hang-up's been for the last couple months is getting all that down. But it's cool. Was
the name initially Grid Down?
No, so Grid Down is something we went and bought. We found it. It was for sale.
Cool.
And we bought it.
Cool.
Super expensive. Most expensive domain I've ever purchased.
I was just curious if they were marketing Grid Down, but had to be tied to the internet. Got it.
No, like it's got LiFePO4 batteries in it. You know, it's got very common parts in it. It's just what we do is assemble it all and make it plug and play.
Cool. Make a nice package.
Yep. Well, and that relates to freedom and just in that.
Yeah.
If you can't produce your own power, you're going to be a slave the rest of your life. I love everybody who's a slave to that system, but I'm telling you, you'll be a slave because they're in control. Did you know the power lines that come into your house, there's an easement with them and you have no say-so?
Yep. Yeah. Did you know they just turned off a bunch of smart meters a couple of weeks ago in Ohio and powered down thousands of people? Yep. And when they were like, why? They're like, we just wanted to test it. What were you testing?
Right. Yep.
Making people mad.
Yep. Well, what they were testing was you've used too many carbon credits. You don't get any power today. What they were testing is you didn't vote right. You said the wrong thing on social media. So you don't get power today.
It's coming.
It's good. Absolutely coming.
Yeah. All those people in it was Colorado, California. There was another state. They ticked the box and took that reduced bill cost for the month. And then in the summer, they had that meters that they had installed and they weren't allowed to turn their air conditioning. It had to hit 80 before it would come on. So everybody was all surprised over that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I have a smart meter at my house and one day it will not work.
We do too.
That's okay. Yeah.
Out here in the middle of nowhere, we do too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Guys, I'm not bashing anybody who's tied to the grid. Bonus, knock yourself out. All I'm saying is that I tell people this all the time. You ask a general how many fronts he wants to fight a war on. They will 100% of them will tell you one. That's what they're going to tell you because they don't want to have to divide their resources. The beast is out there and he's real. And that beast is attacking you on a million fronts through your smartphone, through your apps, through PayPal, through Facebook, through YouTube where we're on right here today. It's so compelling and it's so broad what they're doing. All I'm doing is trying to limit the fronts they can fuck with me. I'm going to take it from 1 million to 2 or 3 because I don't think you can actually get them all, personally. At least I haven't figured out how to do it. But if I can get it down to 2 or 3, I think, which this gets into the off-grid versus off-matrix theory. My goal was to never be off-grid. My goal was to be off-matrix. Off-grid is a side effect of that. That's it. But I don't want them to have that control. I can't tell you how many times we've had power outages in my area. I've never lost power a single time. Not one time.
Not even aware of it.
Yep. I don't even notice hardly.
So this question is, are some of the panel setups off the ground so vegetation does not die off under them? I could see this causing a new dust bowl. I guess it's talking about your solar panels.
Yeah, he's probably talking about a large field. So mine are on a slope. So they're all a little bit, they look level, but they're all at a little bit different height. But there's about 6 feet under mine. And I use them as shelter. I park lawnmowers under them and shit. Because they just keep the water off of them. But
yeah, the most damage that happens to stuff on the property is from sunlight. If you can keep stuff out of the sun. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, now for something completely different. Mullein question. Can I use fresh leaves for tea, or do you have to dry it first because of the little hairs that people mention? I can answer that, but can either one of you two answer that?
If I could yell B and she could answer it, but no, I ain't got a clue.
So, yes, you can use the fresh leaves. I have never had problems with the hairs from the leaves getting in my tea. What I do is I bring water to a boil and then turn it off. And then I throw the leaves in, I let it steep for 5 minutes, and I use that tea to help with upper respiratory issues. And it's perfectly fine fresh. I prefer to use it fresh. I dry about 10 to 20 leaves every winter so that if I get a really bad cold in the winter, even though I can still go out and get mullein in the winter here, or not here, but in Tennessee.
Yep.
Sometimes you're so sick you don't want to walk outside to pick the herbs. So then they're right there by the teapot if I need them.
Is it for expectorant or what's it for, Nicole?
It'll help decongest you, any lung or upper respiratory complaints. If you have a cold coming on where you have that phase where your eyes are watering and your nose is watering uncontrollably and you just can't be around people because it's disgusting, it will help reduce that. I've had a situation one time where I had a cold coming on in the morning and I took mullein tea and it just never came on. So if you catch it early, it can help your body fight off the illness. It is like, it's not going to work all the time, but it was definitely.
Does it work as well dried as it does fresh?
I find it works better fresh.
Okay.
But dried, it still works. And I'll mix it with, because it tastes like grass. So I'll usually mix it with some peppermint or something to make the tea taste a little bit better. But I can drink it when it tastes like grass, dude. Grass isn't a terrible flavor.
Yeah.
It's actually my favorite Harry Potter jelly bean flavor is grass.
So keep a mason jar of it. Just, dry it out and just keep it in a mason jar somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I do. I dry it out air temp. I actually don't put it through the freeze dryer or the Excalibur. I'll pick them right about now and I'll put them on a cookie sheet out and just air dry it and then throw them in a mason jar. I don't even put an O2 absorber in there either. So, and Dusty, by the way, whatever comment you had that got deleted, that was YouTube and not us, because I have not deleted any comments. I saw your question earlier about your comment disappearing. Sometimes YouTube, if you put a link in something, they'll nuke it, or you just, you triggered the algorithm, man. Happens. It happens.
Do it again.
Okay, back to solar. How many years do most of your batteries last, Tag?
Yeah, so the batteries that I use are simplified nickel phosphate batteries. And so the life expectancy on them is about 20 years. So they're a lot, but that's part of the reason why they cost so much money, right? And my batteries are $2,500 a piece. But they're a great battery and they tolerate well, they do well. I have my own building for my solar system, but so to answer the question, 20 years is what the factory says. But the art is, here's the thing about batteries. You only have so many cycles in them. Now I can run my batteries down to 0 because of the type of battery they are, but I never do.
Mm-hmm.
So I run my system set to shut off at 40%. So if my batteries ever get to 40%, the system will shut down. And I do that on purpose because it will extend the life of those batteries. And so if I'm getting my batteries down to 40%, I don't have a big enough system. I need to keep adding batteries until I no longer get underneath 40%, So could be short, could be long.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the cool of go ahead, John.
Even at 20 years, it's still going to work. It's just not going to work at 100% capacity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Half Bubble Off Plum keeps saying that solar is confusing. And this comment is, but I can't find anyone local to walk me through how to do it. And I feel your pain on that because as I was peeling things off the grid for my house, solar never made sense to me. And I've learned how to do basic home wiring, electrical wiring. So it wasn't like I was completely new to electricity or any of that stuff, but understanding how the batteries work, how to hook them up, why the inverter is necessary, like all of that stuff. I keep trying. And finally I met Sean Mills and he did a unprepared presentation on going off grid because he's also built an off grid home.
Yep.
And that was the day it started making sense to me. And some of it sort of is like the math involved in figuring out how much power you need for something, knowing that appliances that say they use however many watts they use, that's like what they use usually. But there may be a surge pull. And so you may set something up that is rated for what's listed on the little label, on the UL label on your electrical thing, and it really surges much higher than that for just a second. Freezers are infamous for that. That's why if you get a generator, you need to make sure it can handle the surge for that compressor in your freezer or fridge to start, and then go through with it. So I would recommend like starting to watch some of the things that hackmyhomestead.com is putting out. That's Sean Mills. A Tag has a bunch of stuff about building his own system, which will demystify that. But it's really hard to find a person or a guy in your area who can just say, this is how you do it, because it's relatively new that a lot of people are implementing solar installations and battery banks and that sort of thing. We've been pretty spoiled being on the electrical grid for so many years.
Yeah. This is why we built grid down. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Keep in mind also, half bubble, off plumb. I think I saw you said that you have a portable solar generator system. I have a Blue Eddy. It's a big, tall stack. I've got I've got the 200 max. It's beautiful. It's packaged amazing. It's not made and not meant to leave out in the sun, though. If you leave those, I have these beautiful panels. They fold out. They've got cloth. They've got kickstands and snaps and Velcro. You leave that out in the sun for 6 months, it's going to eat it to pieces. You're going to end up with a bunch of I don't care how stable and UV stable they say that is. It is not meant to bolt on top of your roof and just leave there. Those are very convenient, very beautifully packaged portable panels. But you leave that stuff out in the sunlight, the sun will destroy that stuff. It's not. It's not rated the same. It puts out great power. It's a great unit, but man, you leave it out in the sun, it's not going to look like that very quickly.
Yeah, no, you got to go the permanent way. Those temporary systems are exactly what they're temporary systems. What's this tag? Do you have a generator?
Do you use a generator as a backup?
Yeah, so I have a 19,000 watt Generac propane generator that then I trench to 1,000 gallon tank. So I have it, but you know what? We have never one time had to turn it on in an emergency. Now we turn it on because it has to go through its cycles, just to keep it healthy. But I've never, to this day, have never needed it to be on. But yes, I do have a generator.
A few times a year.
What's that, John?
Is your tank above ground?
Yes. Yeah, I went to an auction. I bought it for $240, and I took it to the propane company, and they spent $420 rebuilding it. Then I painted it flat, dark earth, and there it sits.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to paint mine like a giant watermelon.
Yeah.
You totally can.
I've seen people put pig faces on them and paint them pink. Yeah. Mine's a rented one. I do not own my tank. That's one of the next areas I will be peeling off dependency on other people, is identifying and putting in a propane tank. It's on the list. And that goes back to, you don't have to do it all at once. Like right now, I pay a company $150 a year for a propane tank, and that's adding up. It's not a great use of my money over time, but eventually that will be at my propane tank, and they will fill it.
Yeah, you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
The theory that you're going to do it all at once, I know it's not the popular answer. Nicole, you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
You can't do it all at once. And I think what you said was so smart, which is, I'm just peeling off another layer. If you just look at it like that, I'm on this mass quest to get as free as I can get. And the swings I have to take today are significant swings, but it's one little piece at a time. That's it. It's not hard.
We see those propane tanks for sale on Marketplace all the time. In Craigslist in the farm section, you'll see 250s, 500s, and 1000s very, very frequently. Same with fuel tanks and water, stainless steel and milk tanks and stuff like that. You see a lot of that stuff on there. And Josh had asked if propane was the way to go. Tag is going to tell you propane was the way to go for him, because he has no incoming pipes, no water, no nat gas.
Right.
Natural gas is in this building in a huge manner, very convenient, has never been shut off. We've cut it a bunch of times. Propane is something that we can take and bring to your location, Josh, and set it there. Even if their smart meter on your gas says you don't get gas today, you lose a little bit of energy. running propane. You get a little less energy production versus gasoline. But propane, you get a barbecue tank full of propane, it's good 20 years from now.
Right.
You get a can of gas, you're up in 2 years, 3 years, depending on treatment and how sealed it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just saying
your turn.
Okay, my turn. We're increasing our use of propane for things at the property, even while adding the solar aspects to it, just because of the gasoline issue. And then I've watched the power grid become less and less stable over the last 5 years in a major way where I am. Yeah. So the writing's on the wall in the holler. We're going to have to be ready to be off grid, I think.
You have
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of military diesel generators that are very inexpensive with very, very low hours on them. I talked to a man the other day running a food truck that he converted out of a school bus, and he's running a 30K diesel on the back of that. He bought it for $2,000. It looks brand new. It's painted, matte tan, desert tan color, and diesel stores longer. So if any of you guys are running equipment already for your farm stuff, to have an elevated tank with no electricity, my tanks are all elevated. I've got 2 300s, so it just flows off of gravity, the diesel, and the diesel lasts real long compared to gasoline. It just doesn't go bad nearly as quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I store. I have a 500-gallon diesel tank, a 500-gallon gasoline tank, and a 1,000-gallon propane tank. And in my opinion, to John's point, propane is 100% the way to go because they can't cut it off. And because I go through about 100 gallons, 150 gallons of propane a year. So I get to store 5, 6, 7 years of fuel. Now, it's not as efficient as diesel. It's not as powerful either. You're not going to get as much out of it or some of the other things. But I think when you combine being dependent on the system, propane's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. Somebody asked about Pri-G. Pri-G that's the deal. That's what the U.S. military uses. They do Pri-G for gas, Pri-D for diesel. You can buy it in 1 gallon. 1 gallon treats, I think it's 10,000 gallons of fuel. It's a lot. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Camping World. We use it. We have it here. It'll reconstitute fuel that will not run. You can add this to it, and a lot of times the fuel will be usable.
Yeah, this is a really important thing about propane. Most gas companies get squirrely about filling a tank that's not theirs unless you have it certified. And that's part of what Tag did when he put $400 into his tank. It's the first mistake I made on my homestead was the existing propane tank. The gas company said they wouldn't fill it because it wasn't certified. And I didn't think to ask, how do I get it certified? Instead, I sold that tank and started renting tanks. And I'm pretty sure, based on the cumulative rental I have put into tanks over the last 15 years, that I could have just paid them to have it certified. And it had an attachment on it to fill things from out of it that they didn't want on there that we could have just taken off. I probably could have spent $500 to $800 and just had that moved further away from the house and dealt with. So that's when you're dealing with propane, like, figure out how to have your own tank if you have one, and then realize you might get the runaround. You get charged less per gallon if you own your own tank too from the companies around where I live.
Well, Nicole, there's another side too. I want to make a comment to that point, which is I went to my local propane company and had them rebuild the tank. So what are you going to say? You're not going to propane in a tank you built?
Right.
I mean, this is easy. I mean, I'll handle that argument. No problem. Now, in fairness, out here, they don't give a shit. They want your money.
Yeah. My existing tank they came out with had a leak detector and said it was certified. What else are they doing? Yeah, they're just getting rent for their tanks is what they're doing. And they're charging you more per gallon because it includes the maintenance of your tank. And then they do nothing to your tank. Yeah. They do nothing to it at all. Yeah, I'm the one who gets rid of the wasp nest.
Some of their rentals look pretty raggedy too. I don't know what they're doing on some of their stuff's pretty nasty. And it depends on the company too. We do things out here in the middle of nowhere very different than what they can get away with in Nashville.
Yeah, that's true too. Okay, speaking of solar systems, Pluto, planet or no?
I have no idea what that is.
The planet Pluto? that was then deplanetized and now it's a planet again? It was a joke.
Okay. I thought he was talking about some brand called Pluto that I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, no.
What about burying your tanks? Is that a thing? I thought it was. Then I heard a lot of people say that you can't just direct bury a propane tank.
Yeah, no. They don't like to do it. The companies don't like to do it. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to have to deal with it. I don't want to have to dig it up.
Yeah, you have to basically build a underground vault for it. My neighbor buried his tank, and he made a concrete underground, basically tank room.
Yep.
And that's what he had to do. And to figure out what the specs were on that, he had to work with the propane company where he gets his propane. So, it's the same when you want to bury lines on your property. Like my dream is to bury all the power lines that are going overhead on my property, not the ones like I have an actual easement from the power company through. I'm not going to mess with that, but we have a crisscross of things that will eventually be underground. It's part of the big picture plan. In fact, every time we put something in where it's like, is that going to cross the underground route? Well, okay, it's time to start thinking about doing the burying of the power lines, but that's another, couple $1,000 that goes into the property. So,
yeah, okay. Nicole, that's one of my favorite things about my properties. If you drive down the road to my driveway, it's very unassuming, my driveway. It's just a gate with a gravel road. But you drive down, there are no lines coming down. There's no transformers. There's nothing there that would say, hey, this is an address. Nothing.
Yeah. That's really cool. Okay, if you were building a new home on a homestead, what construction methods would you use for maximizing energy efficiency?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's a lot of things. So I'll tell you the LW, I'm going to tell you one of the greatest compliments I ever received in my whole life. I've got a buddy, his name's Mo, and Mo is an engineer and a very high profile engineer, worked for Black & Veatch, which is a huge engineering firm, right? 8,000 employees. And he came over to my house one day in July, and he walked in and he sat down on my couch and he said, air conditioning. And it wasn't on. And, he didn't know what he was saying to me at that time, but I'll tell you how I do it. So the first thing is, like, my living room floor is 2 foot thick concrete. That's how I use the thermal mass of the earth, right? My floor is constantly emitting cold air because it's so thick. The second thing is people say put R19 insulation in your walls, for example. That's the standard insulation that would go into a 2x6. Well, mine are R30 plus they are foil wrapped on both sides. Every single seam is taped. The windows, I bought the best windows money could buy. They're all triple pane windows, So I think what it's about is this huge collective thing you do. The other thing that I would tell you guys is pay attention to how air flows. So, cold air sinks and hot air rises. If you think about this, you can direct air through your house by how you build a staircase, how you turn a corner. For example, the transition between my living room and my kitchen is not a flat transition. I built it down into an arch, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to divert the air. I didn't want it just flowing into that room. And so I think the advice I would give them is just think that whole process through. Everything that you need is out there, but I would start with big, thick concretes.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're really looking into different things that can happen with different building styles, that it is worth getting out and seeing the natural building projects that are being done all over the country. I'm at Wheaton Labs right now, and there is so much I've learned just being here for 4 or 5 hours by seeing the stuff in person, even though I've seen video and I've heard about it. There is a River and Amani are starting a whole hempcrete project near Chattanooga this year. And you will be able to see how hempcrete actually helps regulate humidity and temperature. There are earth ships in the desert. There are all sorts of different things to look at that can help you choose. Something I really learned a lot from was seeing how the Amish build their homes to optimize what the sun does. So they'll build the roof out south facing far enough that the sun never hits the south wall in the summer when it's up high. And in the winter, it's heating that south wall, and that helps heat the house. And then from there, you got to make your decision. I was actually just talking here. I said, my issue is less about the heat and cooling. I mean, I cool, but mostly I cool because there's too much humidity in my home.
Yep.
And so and then to get humidity out of the air, what do? You heat the air, and then you got to cool the air. So finding ways to get humidity out of a place naturally, that would be like my dream structure for the next structure in the holler.
Yeah, I think one advice I would say, Nicole, off what you said to everybody is, it's also important to understand where you live, because where you live can be intrusive. They can have lots of rules. And so as you start getting into alternative building systems, these can create problems for you, in an electrical inspection or in some kind of, whatever it is. And so understanding where you are, where I live, we can do whatever we want. So actually where I live, it made sense to look at alternative building, although I didn't want to do it because I wanted to be able to deal with it at Home Depot.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am, right? But if you live in a place that's super regulated, be careful, because I got a buddy of mine who's moving out of Tennessee, actually moving to Kansas, and they made him take down a whole bunch of walls in his house because he didn't do it right.
Oh,
Screw that. No,
in Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
Where? What county?
I don't know what county it is, but it's in the far
Lewisburg.
North. It's almost Georgia. So it's
okay.
North,
okay.
East corner.
Southeast corner.
We have no codes or zoning. No codes, no zoning here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to check out the county where John Willis is, come to the Self-Reliance Festival, October 15th and 16th, selfreliancefestival.com. Early bird pricing is only good for about another 4 weeks. So, sorry, I had to put my commercial in. Did I sound like a commercial?
It sounded great. I was reaching for my wallet when you said it.
Awesome. Yeah. Any thoughts on graphene as a building material?
None for me. I don't know.
I have no experience there. Yeah.
It sounds neat. You can't bring it to me and show it to me. We can't do it here today. In the future, maybe. I mean, it seems great as batteries and such, but there's a ton of talk around it, but I can't do it today. I mean, we built this building. I know how to do this. It's like the cordwood buildings and the earth ram building. Those are awesome. I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't have time to do that. Like, that's more power to you if you're going to do that. That's badass. But I needed something like we're up and running and producing money.
Right.
Yeah. Money really helps in this situation.
I saw somebody say, when shit hit the fan, propane's not going to last. You're absolutely right. Yep. But with that said, I'm 52 years old. I haven't seen shit hit the fan yet, right? Every year something's supposed to kill us, but make more money. People hate it when I say that. Be more successful. Have, redundancy. Tag has a wood burning oven. He can heat the whole entire house off of that. They can cook off of that. We have an outdoor kitchen here. We also have gas. Nicole has multiple. I mean, just have convenience as a backup for immediate, and then we can burn wood if we need to. We can do things out of redundancy if we need to. But it's about just having those layers and everything every day. Like just make more money. If you don't want to make money, money's evil. That's your thing. But I would rather spend my time running my business and running multiple businesses and just buy 2 more propane tanks or buy a tanker truck of propane or, just have have enough property that you don't even have to see it. It's just back there in a barn somewhere.
Well, to John's point, I need 1,000 gallons of propane about every 5 years. So you put 3,000 gallon propane tanks together. That's 15 years. I'm 50 years old. That's a long time, so. Hey, there was a comment earlier about the price of freedom that I thought was really important.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I kept it for you.
Okay, good. Everything you're doing is awesome. Seems incredibly expensive up front. Is there a break-even point within maybe a decade, or is it just the price of freedom? Well, the first thing I'll tell you is I don't know, because I don't pay attention to the break-even. That's not why I did it. It has nothing to do with it. If doing what I did cost twice the money, I'd have still done it. So, because at the end of the day, I believe that it's more expensive just to keep playing the game. I think at the end of the day, we're hurting our kids, we're hurting future generations. It's time for us as human beings to take a stand and say no, which, by the way, is a complete sentence. Right? No. It's time to do this. And so, Sam, to your point, I don't know what the break even is because I don't care. I just don't want to be a slave. They told me when I was building solar that, okay, you'll break even in 10 years, blah, 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 blah. But it's bullshit. I'll tell you why. Because in 10 years, I'm replacing batteries, I'm replacing charge controllers, I'm replacing solar panels, I'm replacing something, whatever. I don't know that you ever catch it. But if you're doing it for a financial break-even point, just stay on the grid, man, and go put your money in a business. Go be self-employed. Go be an entrepreneur. Put your money there. Don't do it in that, because you'll never get there.
Yep. We had a bunch of people sell houses on the coast over inflated prices, move here, buy 100 acres of property near and around here. And every place you see a gravel driveway, this is what happened. They come in, they get a contractor, and they're like, okay, 100 acres, build my McMansion. They've got cash ready to go. And the contractor's like, okay, in 5 years. So they bring in a tiny house, and they've got a fifth wheel or whatever. There were so many tiny houses came into Tennessee that the mobile home companies were failing, and they got with government, and the government leaned on the electrical company and said, okay, you can't energize these tiny houses. You can't energize these sheds if they don't have a DOT, Department of Transportation number, because the mobile home lots were literally, they were just failing. Okay, well, what's the workaround with that? Okay, electric company, F off. We're not going to pay you. What do? You solarize that mini house, and now you can run mini splits on that thing. You can run a small box wood heater in that thing that runs 3-inch cubes, right?
Yep. You
can be 100% comfortable every single day of the year in those little tiny houses. And then once you build your thing, whatever. You use it as a studio, you use it as an Airbnb, you use it in case the grid goes down. But they're just pushing people to not need them.
And
what a wonderful gift that is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny how they think they're making a rule, and human ingenuity is like, okay, screw you, man. I'm going to middle finger this right the way I want it. That's awesome. Yeah. Patrick says, I remember they stopped all wood burners in homes, said if it was your main source of heat, no homeowners insurance coverage. There are ways around that.
Yep.
What's the accurate way around that, guys?
Yep. Well, the first thing is you don't have to carry insurance, because insurance is a freaking scam. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
I spent 23 years running insurance companies, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. But I have homeowners insurance on my house, and I have no other source of heat but wood. So shop around, right? I mean, you don't have to take the answer of that one company. Tell the company to kiss your ass. The other thing is, if everybody does that, capitalism is such a wonderful thing. The winners will win.
They said 1%. If 1% contested the tickets they got, it would shut the system down. Have you guys seen all these travel? Here's the deal channel, right? There's a bunch of these auditor videos, and it looks like they're just asking for trouble, and they are. They're out there driving around, no license plate, no insurance. Cop stops them. They're like, I'm not doing commerce. Now, I'm sure there's some of these guys sitting in jail somewhere, but there seems to be a huge number of them where the cops are just like, okay, get out of here. As soon as the captain shows up, as soon as the supervisor shows up, they're like, get out of here. Yep. It's just pushing back. It's just no. You're not going to tax me today. No, I'm not going to stand for this. There is real crime. Go deal with real crime. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you tell them no, man, it's just about their power over you.
Yep.
And how much does it cost to put, let's say, baseboard heating in on a thermostat in a home?
Well, it depends on what are you running? Is it propane heat? Is it
no? I mean baseboard, just the electric, super expensive 1980s era. No, you put it in and don't use it if you really are worried about the insurance. Just because you have a wood stove and your other primary source of heat doesn't mean you have to use it as your primary thing. That's the other thing. But yeah.
Well, there is an attack on your ability to do for yourself, right? Natural gas, propane, they're going after the wood fire and coal fire pizza ovens in New York now. I mean, it's ramping up. I mean, it's definitely happening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the propane wall heaters cost about $300 per room, and you don't have to have one in every room. There's your primary heat.
We put 2 of those. I have a mobile home trailer for the snakes up the road. And it's 74 feet by 16, worst insulation in the world, right? It's just the most non-efficient type of building that there is, these old mobile homes. Yep. And we put 2 of those in there, mediums, and it runs on natural gas. If I turn that thing up a quarter, it actually kills the animals in there. Like, we've never fired both of them at one time. It heats end to end, and they work so well. We bought 3 more of them. I have them sitting in boxes just in case we ever need them, wall hanging, and you can run them off propane or nat gas. They're ridiculously, they will cook you out of there so fast.
Yep. That's, heat's such a funny thing. It's so easy to heat, and yet people overcomplicate it because all they can see is the HVAC unit, the package unit.
Yep.
So, okay. What has better power potential, LP, natural gas, or diesel?
Diesel.
Diesel.
Not even close.
What works best for you? You decide.
Yeah. But I think what I would say is power performance, is that what you're going for? Because if that is your only concern, then I would buy a diesel generator. If your concern is, I want to be able to store indefinite amounts of fuel, that's a different answer, right? I mean, so I think you have to measure what slave you want to have, right? You want to be a slave to the propane, a slave to the diesel, a slave to the gasoline, and where are you getting it from? To me.
So let's talk about mortgages, because a lot of people have insurance on their homes because it is required for your mortgage. My mortgage is going to be paid off next year unless I choose to prioritize that differently. But the interest rate is so low, that's totally not going to happen. I would rather buy a swim spa for $20,000 right now with cash than use that cash to pay off my mortgage at a 4% interest rate. So how do you get freedom from insurance requirements, tag, and still end up with a homestead? What did you have to do to get your homestead?
Well, I mean, the thing is that I didn't take out a mortgage. That's the first thing, right? I paid cash. And I get this question all the time. But, it must be so nice that you had the resources to do that. But the fact of the matter is I saved my money for 9 years to buy my land. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't go do those things. I saved my money because I wanted a homestead more than I wanted anything else. That's just what it was. So put yourself in a position to where you don't have to have insurance would be my best advice I'd give to you, right? Don't be there. People, not only are you paying homeowners insurance, most people who are listening to this are also paying PMI insurance.
Right? I never had to pay that. Yeah.
Most people are, because they owe greater than 80% of the home's value. And so just put yourself in a position to not do that. But guys, it's not a light switch. This is the thing I want to stress to everybody. Just do something. Peel a layer, as Nicole says. Don't be paralyzed, as John says. Just one little step at a time, and you'll eventually get there. I didn't just one day decide, hey, I'm going to go put $1 million in this homestead and how cool this would be. It was a lot of planning and a lot of work over a lot of number of years, Yeah.
Nobody likes to hear I saved for 9 years to buy my piece of land, because 9 years from now, I will be 59 years old.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And so that's not a sexy answer, but sometimes that's the answer. Or the answer is you saved for 3 years and bought a smaller piece of property than Tag bought. I have 3.2 acres. It's not a large property. Yep. I have relationships with my neighbors, and I have access to 16 more acres to run sheep on. That's because I've been there and I've been a good person in my community. So they, it's a win-win. They don't have to bush hog because my sheep eat their grass, and I have food for my sheep for free. And they make delicious meat.
There's a lot of ways. You know how many homesteads are out there that would love the extra help? Where you could go and put a camper on and work for 6 or 7 years until you saved up your money. There's stuff like that's out there all over the place. There's a million options. You just have to want it more than you want the Starbucks. You just have to want it more than you want the whatever. It's not complicated.
And maybe somebody who's 20 years old hears this. I mean, how much shit did you guys all buy when you were 20 that you don't care anything about right now? And if I had saved 10% of all of that bullshit, I mean, just imagine what that would do.
Yeah.
I don't regret the trips to other countries. I will say that. And that did eat up some money. But I learned a lot.
We're talking about. We're talking about all the trash that
all the beer
that just is. It's just replaceable every year. It's by design.
There was a time when I was going out to eat at like frou restaurants in Portland, Oregon, 4 nights a week. Yep. That adds up.
Yep.
Totally adds up. Some of the food was really good, but yeah. Where I live in PA, they don't like to fill an empty tank. unless they test it. Okay, that's your
So
your propane cartel. We built a rocket stove out of old bricks. Really, in an easy way, it's an easy way to cook outdoors with just twigs.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're back to the price thing, right? Start with something. If you can start cooking outside with twigs, what are you not using? You're not using power in your house to cook. You're not putting heat in your house and having to cool your house in the summer. And you did it without spending a lot of money on big, expensive systems out of the chute. And you've learned something. I think all of that is a great way to start. That's how you start taking those bites, whether or not you have saved up for 9 years for your homestead yet or not.
Yep. Well, and I think that there's an important note too to everybody. Anybody who's listening who wants to go down that road, do it my life analysis. Understand where you are. Get a big piece of graph paper out or whatever it is, and understand all of the ways the system has stroke over you. And that stroke is anybody you have to ask permission. Right now, I have to ask permission to the propane company to give me propane if I want to use propane, right? So that's stroke. I have to ask permission to my state because I have to pay them taxes. So those are ones I haven't gotten rid of yet. But the point I'm saying is go through this huge analysis and understand them. And then, as Nicole said, just start chunking at them. Which one can you attack? You're not going to attack all. I've never been able to attack all of them. Right? I've been at this a while.
You literally can just start by making your own ferments or something. Like it could be something that small, or growing some herbs. And I say that all the time, and it sounds like cliche at this point, but that knowledge that you get is what serves you later when you do find yourself on your homestead for the first time. Yep. And those little changes that reduce your need to earn the money to buy the thing, if it fits with your lifestyle, works out really well. And I know John would say just earn more money, but he's also growing chicken and rabbits and all of his vegetables, and they still buy stuff at the store, but
I do that. I do all that because people tell me they don't have time. So I run the business. We do all the stuff that everybody says they don't have time for. I don't care what anybody does until they tell me what they can't do. And usually they asked me something and I gave them the answer, and then they tell me why they can't do it. Well, yes, you can. We all have 24 hours. The only difference between any of us is how we spend that 24 hours.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah, I'm learning that really hard on 75 hard at this point. I think that's the purpose of it. Speaking of insurance, can you guys discuss how you handle healthcare being self-employed? Let's go around the horn on that.
Yeah, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So many states have now moved to a law where you can yoke up with other self-employed to get group coverage. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's a big movement in our country. We have it right here in the county that I live in, where we have alternative healthcare, which is what I belong to. So we have a series of 6 clinics. We pay them a monthly fee. They handle all of our needs, and there's no insurance. They don't even take insurance. And so, but you got to go out and build those. So I guess I would tell you is being self-employed. If you want to be part of a group plan, go buy a group plan. If you want to be individual, be individual. And if you totally want out of the system, then go start a health share. Go start a direct care. That's what we did. Our direct care system here in the county that I live in, it's so funny. When it first started, there was just a handful of people that were doing it. And today, I think they have 12,000 members now in 6 clinics. I mean, they've gotten big and take no insurance. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you do?
We've got real insurance. We don't ever use it. We have it. It gives me a helicopter ride to a trauma center. We use a program called Optimize You. We get all of our blood work done, does all of our hormone optimization. I've got friends that own clinics. I've got friend Dr. Barry was my doctor for 14 years, handled anything that we needed done. If we needed a script for something, we were able to do that. So even though we have real medical insurance, we don't utilize our real medical insurance. I really should just stop. We should drop it. But we just have doctors that we have relationships with, and we are able to do things when we need things done.
Yeah. So before I became homesteader living free in Tennessee, Nicole Sauce Lady, I was working in public policy, and one of the policies I worked on was health insurance, or the health law. And my goal in life was to help other organizations push back on government expansion into the healthcare, into socializing our healthcare system. And I didn't win on that one, obviously. I remember when Obamacare passed in the middle of the night, I literally felt depressed for a week because I knew what we were doing was, it was like the final nail in the coffin of people conflating healthcare with health insurance, which are two totally different things. Just because you have insurance doesn't mean you get the care you have, right? And I think that's the first thing, is realizing health care is getting care when you need care, when you're sick or those sorts of things. But it's also your responsibility to do your best to prevent yourself from getting sick, which means rather than put your faith in that urgent care clinic, right? Take it back and ask yourself, how can I avoid being in the urgent care clinic? And that starts with better diet, better exercise, finding out if you're through blood work, if you need to balance something in your system a little bit differently. Find the kinds of doctors who take a more holistic approach and are what doctors used to be, which are coaches. They used to be health coaches, right? And sure, if you get a broken arm or cancer or something, it's probably above your pay grade and it's time to start working with the experts on things. But I have seen so many people in the last few years just watching the healthcare system disintegrate who have things that we used to be able to handle, and they just get lost in the system. Like somebody in my family died in the last 3 weeks, and I think a big part of that was the care he didn't get at the right time. And I won't go into more details because it's not my story to tell, but it's, this is a very good hospital making a huge mistake, right? And that can happen. So it's really up to you to advocate for yourself and to do that. That being said, there is an insurance requirement that we have under Obamacare that you basically can get around now because basically Trump made it so that it was unenforceable. And there are things you can do if you don't want to mess with getting around that. You can get a health share, which we've already talked about. You have to be at a certain level of health for a health share, and it won't cover everything. If you get diabetes, it will cover your prescription for like 3 or 6 months, and then they expect you to figure out how to pay for that because that's an ongoing cost, not an emergency cost or a one-time cost. You can get a catastrophic plan that just kicks in over a certain amount if you want to have insurance. You can join a direct primary care network to get your basics covered every year for a subscription fee. And just go on the internet and Google direct primary care. They're very hard to get into because once people realized what they were, they started dealing with them. Cash clinics, you can negotiate up front and say, if I pay cash for this today, how much is that going to cost? And then you can shop around. There is a clinic in Oklahoma called the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. They list on their website what a knee replacement costs. And if your knee replacement fails, they redo it for free. So then you can take that to your local hospital and say, will you meet this? And they will say no. And then you will fly to Oklahoma and have a nice vacation for your knee replacement. Or they will say, sure. So the other thing is the prices they charge you at the hospitals are negotiable. And the problem is it's hard to negotiate when you're in the middle of a heart attack.
Yeah. Yep. MRI is $1,500 cash. It's $6,000 to $9,000 through insurance. Wound closure, typically it's $200 if you just pay for it.
Yeah. Do you have content on insight into that side of healthcare? I have a podcast episode all about being self-employed and a homesteader and what healthcare options do you have. I plan to this year redo it. I want to do some deeper dives into some of the new solutions that have come up because it used to be, it was like health share, catastrophic, pay cash, and that was it. Or go on Obamacare, which ends up costing you more in some cases.
Evan, who asked the initial question, he has a pretty interesting setup. His is through a church or a religious group, but they do have a group plan like what Tag was talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, you just have to start asking and you'll find more things. But I would say, like, I'm really thankful that in the last 5 years or so, I've discovered new ways to take control of my health because I was starting to go down things were starting to break. And losing weight and getting my diet under control and starting exercise on the regular really made a huge difference for me. And it was before I got to the point where anything bad had developed that was chronic that I'm dealing with.
Raven Ness says type 2 diabetes is curable. Let's just call that what that is. That's self-induced diabetes. We had a dude here, worked here for years, taking all kinds of medication to include injectables. He just went keto. That's all he did was keto. And that he went off all of his medications. Josh, who is commenting in here, was our chef here for years.
Yeah.
Josh prepared our meals, and Jeff didn't take any of those medications for a year at least, just literally through diet. Most people, when you hear diabetes, they're not born with that. That happened through life. And most of the people, I'm not saying all these people, but most people having this conversation, they're not fit to begin with. Like, fitness is free. And I say that all the time. And guys are like, no, it's not, because I don't give a shit what you have to say. Your life, you lead it how you want to lead it. But if you need to take, and you have to maintain medical insurance because you take all these injections and stuff because of your choices, well, that's your choice. That's your choice. I don't have to do any of that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, figuring out how to fit 2 workouts a day and has been a challenge for me, and I've figured it out now. And your 2 feet can do a lot for you. And then where it does start costing money, John, is suddenly I had to buy new shoes because I wore out my other shoes. But it's not that much. You can get it done. And that goes, it's the same as going off grid or becoming a homesteader. You start by doing one thing. If what you can do is walk for a minute and rest for a minute and walk for a minute and rest for a minute, do that and do a little bit more of it every week.
Yep.
And we don't have to keep reminding them. We don't have to keep reminding them, Nicole. You're literally just said you're going to buy a $20,000 swimming pool. A pair of shoes doesn't cost shit. You have changed your life. You do not need to make excuses for people who won't. All you need to do is just be an example. They will do it or they won't do it.
Yep. Okay, we ready for the next question?
Ready.
This is more. Danny on Deep South Homestead said his off-grid cabin can't be lived in because the state requires wired fire detectors grid tied.
Oh.
Any thoughts about that? Tag's like, I can't say my stuff.
Do you want my real thought? That Danny's going to do what Danny wants to do. And if you watch Danny and you heard Danny say that and you've watched any of his content, I think you know better than to that's some bullshit. They might say that, whatever. Allowed versus able.
Yep.
And this should be a good example. This should be a good example too. When people are like, how much property do I need? Your goal should be to have enough property that they can't see where you live from your property lines. Yep. How would they even know what you're doing?
Yeah, and I'll echo what John said. I know Danny, and Danny's going to do exactly what Danny wants to do. But I think this is a great opportunity to say, no, I'm going to do what I want.
This is a perfect time to be the dude that's on all the news that let them. We'll fight that fight.
Yeah.
You do not want to fight this fight. Like, you have plenty of fights you can win. I will draw so many eyeballs, and I will have you won't even be able to use the phones at your police station.
Yep.
Yeah. Amanda says they just fly drones over us here to spy.
Yep, they do. Yep.
Now, I wonder, now, I'm not suggesting anybody do this, okay? Just to be clear.
This is going to be good.
I wonder if someone flew a drone over my house and caught, my wife naked or a child naked. Would that then be pornography? And would that then be illegal? And could then I not file suit against the person flying the drone? I'm just curious.
They already have laws for that. And they put those laws in effect to limit our ability to fly drones. But it doesn't, I have not seen this tested yet. If there's a drone over your property and you shot that drone down, you would be within your right, if it was an individual, but maybe not a municipality. But somebody needs to test that. Drop that thing and see what happens. See who shows up. Who shows up looking for the DJI drone.
Oh.
One time somebody was flying a drone over my property and we came out with the shotgun and we knew who it was. And we had no intention of shooting it down. And that drone, like, they saw the shotgun because they could see live. And they just flew straight off the property. And the guy was like, "We thought you were going to shoot us." And we were like, "No, they didn't think we knew who they were." So that was a long time ago before people knew what to do with drones. So Chris says, so people was bad mouthing saying we was not fast enough. I'm not sure what that's about.
I don't know what that means. Chris is our chainsaw guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
We all know Chris.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe he's talking about in the video or something.
Maybe.
Illegal to film on private property surreptitiously or without consent unless it's a felony here. So there's some videos out there on some of these First Amendment rights channels. There's some videos of some dudes who went to Chamber of Commerce and had meetings with the mayor and such and the zoning guys over flying. There's a dude in Idaho who has a ton of content out about them. And that's his thing. He's like, I own enough property. You can't see what I built on my property. You guys are using drones to come and assess taxes. And it looks like he's winning in court over it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think you'll see more and more of that. And I also would tell you that anti-drone technology it's come to a long way, and there will always be a counter, to whatever's out there. But
I was just highlighting this comment. Radio frequency jamming drone legal usually.
Yep. Somebody said it's illegal to shoot them down. That's fine. But as soon as people start, and I'm telling you, this is a dude that flies the drone. I fly drones every day. Every single day, I have my drone up someplace, somewhere doing something. There's rarely a day that I don't fly a drone. But if I'm over somebody's property and they shoot my drone down, well, I was over their property. Well, I guess we'll test that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys saying nets and such. My drone flies at 400 feet. You're not even touching it with a shotgun.
Right.
You're not doing a net. I know it sounds neat and all, but you're not. And the bigger drones, they can just sit on target up high. You won't even know they're there. The cameras are so incredible. We had a law enforcement agency had their drone in here a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a DJI drone. It's pretty big, and it can sit so high you'll never see it, and it can zoom in and do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And they use it for suicides and such, people holding guns to them. So they don't have to put an officer out there. They can communicate. The drones that are out there that they get are and you can get them. You're looking at $30,000, $40,000 drones. I've got a drone that, all said and done with the controller, batteries, everything, I'm under $2,000. You can get one for a few $100, and they'll sit at 400, and you can see a ton of stuff with those things. And if you're not sure, guys that are like, I don't need a drone. The best thing about the drone is when I hear a bulldozer, I can throw that thing up and see if it's on my property or somebody else's property. If I see smoke, is it my crazy neighbor burning leaves, or is there a fire? When we're stuck on the interstate, I can put it up and go, okay, do we need to figure out a way out, or is this just a traffic jam 10 minutes up here? If you've got it, you've got it, and you can always know what's happening around you.
Yep. It's interesting how we've gone straight into what's legal and not legal on a day when we're supposed to be talking about freedom. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, that is freedom. I mean, what was this? We had a war over 1% tax. I mean, we had a war. They wouldn't let us have metal tools in the United States, right? That flag was tattered and torn for a reason. I saw a meme today. It said, "Be the reason somebody questions government." I think that's what it said, and that kind of stuck with me. Be the reason someone stops believing in government. What do they do for you? Like, think about that. All the money, the average U.S. citizen, whether you believe it or not, you pay 65% of every dollar you make. And all you dudes that are like, all you anti-tax guys, when you walk in a business and you want to run a debit card, you're allowing it, man. Go pull some cash out, pay in cash, take cash. That's why they want to get rid of it. It's just so that they can control you. In China right now, they got these smart cities. We have them too. They're called 15-minute cities. We have them. They're in existence right now. They just haven't put up the toll booths yet. In China, there's some footage came out I saw today where they facial recognition scan you, and that opens the gate that lets you through the corridor into the next area. Like if you haven't heard of this, they're putting them up in Europe. They're functional right now. Just check them out. They're called 15-minute cities.
Man.
Chattanooga.
Coming to a city near you.
Yeah.
They're already
Chattanooga's
there.
going there. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you hear city planning, right? Every city, rural or not, your city town council, they use terms that sound benign, and they are not benign.
Yeah, the ones to really watch out for if you're rural is the regional planning.
Yep.
It's like community development districts.
Yep.
Those are the guys who do the things under the auspices of preserving farmland that make it almost impossible to farm and get the people out of the rural areas and into the cities. That's where it comes from.
They'll come in and act like they're doing you a favor by rezoning part of your property so you pay less property taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would add quit asking permission.
Yep.
Just stop. I mean, I can tell you there's all kinds of things I do. I don't ask permission. I'm going to do what I want to do. And, they talk to the guy was talking about on his property, or that Danny couldn't hook up. Just do it anyway. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to put all of us in jail? Seriously? I mean, I don't want to give bad advice to get anybody in trouble, but at the same time, you talk about what's legal and what's not legal. Well, that's a fascinating question because, you got to define what legal is.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the laws that are on the books today, many of them are not legal based on the Constitution, right? They're just not. And they only work because we agree to follow them. If we start telling people no, guys, I've told my county commissioners no 100 times. No, you're not doing that. No. Nope, I don't like your assessment on my taxes. You better change it because I'm not paying it.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing it. So do what you got to
do. You don't have enough guns. What do you mean? Well, you don't have enough guns with you right now. You better come back with a lot more guns. Go someplace where somebody is not willing to spend all their money to fight this fight. Somebody in here said killdozer. That's it exactly, man.
Yep. Said perfect.
Yeah.
As long as this thing's on, you won't get pushback. That's why they'll never turn this off. They keep it's right here. Amusement, man. Just pacifier.
That's what it's for. So Jason, thanks for the super chat. Whoever you sent that to, I feel like Radio Made Easy needs a drone radio jamming made easy solution.
Yep. We'll test it on my stuff. I've got a bunch of drones here we can test.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a good point here too. Is there's enough resources out there. I talked about my buddy who's the PhD physics guy, but there's a lot of really smart people out there. If we can all yoke up together, we can create all kinds of interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have access to the, a high-speed pick-and-place machine that builds computer boards at a record pace. If I had a design, I could build anything I wanted. Right? So enough of those resources come together, we can build all kinds of cool stuff.
Sounds like there's a market for it, man.
And there is a very, very good element of what people don't know, don't need to know. Yep. We talk about legal all the time, and I ask the first question is it right? Mm-hmm. That's a much more important question to ask than is it legal? Is it helpful to know what things are and are not legal? Yes, because then you know what your risks are associated with decisions you make. But there are a lot of things that are legal that are not right. And there are a lot of things that are illegal that should be legal.
Yes.
And is it a law or a policy? There's a difference in those.
Yep.
Yeah.
A grown man follows my daughter into a bathroom, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah. But we are overly programmed to ask, is it legal or not? And then people tell on people for not doing the thing that's letter to the law legal, and that's abuse. And if you don't get in the habit of asking yourself, is it right? You end up being the Nazi shooting Jews in the concentration camp because you were told to do it, which is a terrible reason to kill a person.
Yep.
Well, you just saw it happen during the lockdowns, right? All these officers enforcing policy. Those weren't laws. Those were policies. But you just have to look at it. Well, go on. I'll go on.
Well, I think that, Nicole, to your point too, another thing that we all have to be doing is securing, the counties we live in and the states that we live in. And we can make a huge, huge dent if we just get all the county commissioners elected from like-minded people. And you get the school boards filled and you get the sheriff filled and you start getting these important places filled. And pretty soon you can control a lot of that right around where you are, to where the laws more adequately represent what's right.
Free State Project, New Hampshire. They've been trying to get freedom-oriented people to move there, right?
Yep.
And they've reached their goal of 20,000. And they had one town that was starting to instill building codes and permitting for things. And there were enough Free Staters there to take over the county commission, and you don't need a permit for anything in that town. That is what they did. They were like, screw it. Well, we weren't going to run for office, but now we're going to run for office because you're making us permit stuff. I don't remember which town that was, but
Mike Shelby talks about that a lot. He said the fastest way, like when you're doing area studies and surveys, you have to know what your local level politics, and then bring in enough people. Right. I've got 20 families that moved here because of my company, right? How many families have moved here in businesses because of tactical response? Those are like-minded people. We're all comfortable and we're all lazy and we have not gotten involved in local level politics, but there's enough of us here that we could run local level politics.
Yep. Absolutely true.
And think about who's going to, like the pistol brace thing, right? Okay, you've got this thing on your rifle that was legal for all these years. Now it's not. Who's going to tell on you? Who's going to report you? A guy that looks just like you, a person who has the same interest. When you look at his Facebook page, you're like, we could be friends. It's the same with the radio guys, the ham radio, the sad hams. Who's going to enforce that you have a license or don't have a license? What do they care? But they're right there to tell on you, and they're right there to enforce because you were willing to do something that they were not willing to do. They paid the fee, jumped through the hoops, and now they want to punish you because you're like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. And the best thing you can do for this one person, because there's always a person who wants absolute power, is render them irrelevant by just doing your own thing. And that's when we started out today. We started talking about going off grid, opting out, and freedom being fairly simple, even though it's work, right? It's a choice. You have to decide, I'm going to be as free as I can be. I'm going to be as out of the system as I want to be, and do it one at a time. And then that renders them powerless, even though they quote unquote have power. Like when you can just take care of yourself and your community, when you have a strong community around you, like if people go after John, there's going to be some outcry. Right. That renders them powerless. The biggest tool you have against power hungry politicians is embarrassment. If you embarrass them, you're done. It looks like there's about to be a session around me, guys. So I was going to see if we could go once around the horn. And
Nicole,
are you sure?
Outside, so
okay. Okay, never mind. It looked like there was about to be a class in here. I didn't want to be over them. So, but they're going outside to do a thing. Sorry. So anyway, that's my thought is don't forget how powerful embarrassment is in making policymakers in particular look stupid in the media, which is still possible, it's a powerful pushback.
Can we come to your house? No, you can't. Can I search your car? No, you can't. Where are you going? I don't answer questions. It's gonna be uncomfortable.
Yep.
But it has to be uncomfortable, or it just continues to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried really, really hard over these last 5 years to just ignore the whole system. Not to fight it. Like you won't catch me at a protest because I don't think it works. I'm just leading the system. I took my money, I took my resources, I took everything I had, and I'm doing for me now. I'm not doing for the system any longer.
Right.
And I think you can really do that. Just ignore them. You don't even have to fight them. You don't have to acknowledge them. Just ignore them. Somebody says something to you don't like. Oh, you're pretty cute. Just ignore them.
Well, it's like the social media thing, right? We have all these policies where the companies lock you down. You don't need any of that shit. Mm-hmm. You can block. If you don't like what I say, you can push 2 buttons and never see another thing that I say.
Right. That's right.
You won't even see my comments anymore. But people don't exercise that. Instead, they want to punish you. And that's the same people. The people you call friends right now, we use that term so loosely. We have things in common, so we think they're our friends. But as soon as you do something, you say something that angers them, they don't want to just never see what you say again. They want to look very, very closely They want to punish you for it. We have the ability to remove things from our lives already. Most people won't do that. They keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how that works, isn't it?
The best thing we did was put fences up, man. They can't come in. It was just fences.
Yep.
That is something I should have done years ago. That's like one of my big homestead regrets was I didn't realize I should just put a fence up and a gate.
Yep. And so we still can, Nicole. We can put that up.
Right.
You can.
No, I am.
Somebody said, but if you pull out more than $3,000, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. Do something where people pay you in cash. Then you don't have to pull that money out of there.
Yep.
There's also digital money.
Yep.
Cryptocurrency.
You can take your money from your bank account, put it right into Bitcoin, and spend it wherever you want to spend it.
Yep. I actually had somebody recently buy my coffee because they had liked my coffee, but it wasn't a light enough roast for them now. And now I do light roasts. And they realized I take Bitcoin and they don't want to participate in the banking system. And I said, well, just pay with Bitcoin then, right? It's that easy. Done. I have a customer because I just added the ability to take Bitcoin on my website.
Yep.
It's a toggle of a switch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a plugin. So that's something that there will be. So at Self-Reliance Festival, we will again have a cryptocurrency Bitcoin demonstration at the Pennzoil table. So Michael's gonna show us how to do that. And if you are hesitant about it, scared of it, don't want to participate because it's the new world order, learn about it anyway, because it's a tool. And it's a tool that is completely outside of the centralized banking system. Even if you think it's a tool of the new world order, it's actually outside of that. The way it was built is decentralized and it's out of that. I'm still working on getting somebody to come in and do I might have to do this session, but there's a decentralized social network called Nostr now too, that kind of uses that same decentralized approach. And it's the dream, man. What if when a system like Twitter got overly zealous, I could just log in with my same credentials in a different app and all my stuff from there would come there. That's what this does. So
have Jack do a break off about Nostr.
Yes, I would love to get him.
Get him too. The Amsoil guy, man, that dude adds value every time. Like every time we've done anything, that dude shows up and he puts up, man. He always brings it. Like he's always got something of value. I like that guy.
Yeah. No, he's a go-getter. He's all about building, like taking control of your finances, taking control of your life, building your stuff, and growing food. So that is what is. Somebody's telling me to look into living fencing. Yes, that's part of my strategy, but I am putting in I'm almost done putting in hard fencing around my property because it was stupid. I didn't do that years ago. And I realized that, so I started correcting it stretch by stretch.
Get good at fencing. Make content off fencing. When you have eyeballs, fencing companies will then start coming helping you do fencing.
Yeah.
Like when you build content, no matter what it is you're doing, anything you're doing, no matter what it is, make content. There is an audience for that content. When you have the audience, you will find that whatever you started that content channel, that thing you did, that you documented, you won't have to do that anymore. You just won't. People will come in, companies will be involved. And like I have more money in fencing on this property than the property actually even cost.
Yeah.
But man, every single day people like, man, this thing ate my chickens. This thing attacked my dog, man. Once you have fences, we use fences to keep livestock dogs in, and we use livestock dogs to keep predators out. We don't have any of those problems. I mean, zero.
Yeah.
To include two-legged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not getting into John's fence. If you do decide you're going to climb it, there is a canine on the other side of that fence that's going to get you before John even knows you're there, probably.
There's multiples. Like if you get to this front door, you went through 2 sets of dogs and you went over 2 or if not 3 different sets of fences.
Yeah.
And most criminals are not motivated enough to do that.
Yeah.
Most of our stuff's silly. It's during the day when the gates are open. You hear somebody drive around the building. You're like, what are you doing out here? Oh, I was looking for the front door. Well, you missed it by, 75% of the building. They're out looking to scrap, copper or steel metal or, it's mostly people that if they paid themselves minimum wage, they're actually losing money in the petty crime that they're doing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Somebody says Independence Day is kind of lackluster anymore.
We can change that. I mean, get a group of people that you care about and have the correct conversations. Have the conversation of what it was actually based on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about having sales now. I mean, and if you really want to see what's going on in your economy, whatever genre you're in, right? We build nylon tactical gear. We're kind of in the firearms type industry stuff. Man, there's a ton of dudes out there that are selling stuff for a fact. They are selling it at such a reduced rate. They are losing money on it. There are companies, man, and keep in mind the things you see happening, the way the environment is and feels right now, that was caused 6 months ago. So just imagine what it's going to look like 6 months from now. Things are bad for a lot of places.
Right now, though, if you want to get an EMP shield installed, it is 10% off. I just got an email this morning, empshield.com, and it will protect you not only against an EMP attack, but more importantly, the more likely thing to happen are surges on your power grid, right? As potentially caused by lightning. Anybody who was in Tennessee last week knows that we got nailed twice by some pretty major lightning storms. And it blows so that your appliances don't have to. That is what it does. And if it fails, what happens, Tag?
They'll replace it, and there's a warranty.
They will replace it.
I have 10 EMP shields in this building.
Which coupon code would we like to give out for $50 off on top of that?
You know where I don't have one? I don't have one on the power pole feeding those gate remote openers out there.
Yeah.
And when they were surging during the winter, it blew out that board, $1,400. Had I had the EMP shield on there, EMP shield would have replaced that for me.
Yep. Up to $25,000, right?
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Trying to remember what our combined coupon code is, John. We have a coupon code for $50 off.
We use ours all the time.
I think it's SRF.
Yeah, it's SRF.
SRF for Self-Reliance Festival will get you $50 off.
Yep, it gets you $50 off your order, guys. And they do house units, they do building units. They've got very nicely packaged units for your side-by-side, for any of your small motor stuff. They've got them I've got them on my Toyota trucks, and it's not a gaggle of wires. It is nicely packaged, and they're very easy to install.
Yep.
Said well.
Anyway, I thought I'd bring up that since we had Independence Day sales on the mind. I saw that like right before we jumped on here. Someone placed a picture on Freesteading today that they got hit by lightning and EMP shield saved them. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Lightning is no joke on your power.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen if you walk into the EMP shield factory, there's a big thing on the wall that's got lots of EMP shields on it. They're all broken and busted and cracked because they've all taken lightning bolts.
Yeah.
There's a whole huge wall of them that come from, power plants and pumping stations and just all kinds of stuff all over the country. Yep. It's a very good lightning gear. Yeah, it works very good for lightning.
Yep. All right.
I didn't see that on Freesteading, and you think I would have, huh? I didn't.
Yeah, you would think. .com. Talk to us about Freesteading. Why does it exist?
Yeah, so that's actually quite the story. Most people know my story. The world pissed me off. I went off grid, decided that I was just going to get out of the system. And so one of the ways for me to make that jump was Freesteading, so that we could not only help other people's make it, but that I could make connections. So, because really behind the scenes for me, what it is trying to yoke up the community here with the community in Iowa, and then the community in Nebraska, and then the community, because I want to create a counter and parallel, society, out of it all. And so we built it to help people make that jump from, prepping and survivalism to homesteading, and then ultimately freesteading, which should be, in my opinion, everybody's goal. is to just get as free as we possibly can. So we named it Freesteading, for that. And I'm glad you asked that question on Independence Day, right?
Yes.
That's badass.
Well,
so,
if
so anybody out there, if you're on a Freesteading, go get on it. It's cool. It's free. Don't cost nothing. Go yoke up. Go find your state page. Find a bunch of buddies and get together and tell the system no.
And they're not selling your information to a bunch of spammers.
Nope.
Like, you go there, you choose if you want notifications in email or not, and you just start talking to other people.
Yep.
Like-minded people.
Yep.
Like-minded people.
Community is everything.
It's the most important thing. It's funny because we get into prepping and we think we're going to be all alone in our hidey hole, and that doesn't work very well.
Nope. No, it won't work. Anybody who's ever pulled patrol, I was a soldier. Anyone who's ever done that, you're only effective for so long. I mean, you're never, guys, I have a homestead in peacetime and I can't keep up. Right? It's a full-time job every single day to get to every single thing that needs to be done every single day.
You got to cut enough firewood for yourself to heat your house for the winter, just by yourself. Right. I say this because Tag has a network of people. They come out. Tag has a couple guys. They show up. Yep. All they do is sharpen and fill fuel and borrow oil into saws. And then he's got 10 dudes that are cutting, and he's got 3 dudes that are splitting, and he's got 2 guys that are stacking. And they move around. Every other weekend, they're on another property doing what needs to be done.
Yep.
It takes people. It's
Yeah, we just built a barn last weekend on another buddy's homestead, just this last weekend. But yeah, we rotate all the way around. But at the end of the day, you just can't do it by yourself. I'm telling you can't. Yoke up. Go find people. And they're out there.
Yeah. They're all over the place. Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on a couple hours here, guys. Let's go once around the horn and get into our celebration of Independence Day. Tell me what you're doing to celebrate, guys. I'll wrap it up. Let's start with you, John.
We're working. We have a full crew on the other side of the wall here. SOE Tactical Gear is what we do. That's what allows us to do the things we do. We have Self-Reliance Festival here. I have 4,000 videos on this YouTube channel. I do a live every night at 9 o'clock if you want to talk to me. If you don't, that's fine. I've got tons of videos, and what those are proof of me doing the things that I tell people to do when they ask me. I don't really tell people what to do. People ask me, and then I tell them what I did, and there's evidence of that. You can come here and meet all of us face-to-face. Tag will be here. Nicole will be here. Selfreliancefestival.com. That'll be October 14th and 15th. 2 days prior to that, we're having a Zero to Hero radio class. So if you want to come out and learn how to use all those radios without the gatekeepers, that's happening. Joel Salatin will be here presenting on Sunday, and he's doing our presentation for our chicken processing class on Monday. So you can come out 5 days. You can come out 2 days. Just get in where you fit in. Come out, meet us, and see for yourself that the things we say are real. I think that's very important. There is evidence of everything that we say, and it's all here on one location.
Yeah.
Yep. Tag, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I think on this Independence Day, I think I would like to stress to everybody that remember, no is a complete sentence, and you can use it. And, it's time that we all go out there and pick a side. It's time. There's nothing wrong with standing up for your rights and standing up for your freedoms. But I'm going to tell you, you can't do it alone. And, I want to talk about self-reliance too. The first time I went to Self-Reliance Festival, I moved 2 like-minded families into Kansas where I live, and our community got better. The last time that I was out there, 3 more have now joined the community, and our community continues to get bigger and bigger, but you will never gain community if you don't get your butt off the couch and you don't get out to these events. This coming one, I will have been 4th consecutive SRF, I think, 3rd, I don't remember.
Something.
Anyway, it's been a few that I come out there. It's a great place to meet people. I'm not taking away from the speakers or any of that, but I'm going to tell you, yoking up and finding your tribe, building your community. This is what SRF, I think, in my opinion, excels at, and I hope to see everybody there. And feel free to walk up to me. And then also, some of you guys who are in the chat, if you got a question about solar or any of these things, just reach out. Reach out. There are plenty of people that'll help you. I'll help you. Nicole, help you. John, help you. Anybody will help you. You are not alone.
Yep.
Tag's got a great YouTube channel too, and he does a live where you can actually ask him all of this stuff.
Yeah. I never talk about that stuff. I don't know why. I do a live every Friday night, 7 o'clock. My YouTube channel. I don't know. I'm not a good marketer, I guess.
I don't believe that for a second. Yeah, and I think so. There are 3 events about self-reliance and preparedness coming up this fall that are in a linear fashion. And it starts with the Midwest Preparedness Festival in Kansas. The week, like, what is the start date of the actual start date of that? So the weekend before Self-Reliance Festival is when most of the big stuff is going, and it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday is when you have your presentations. I'll be speaking there, Tag, so I'll see you at your event this time.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. So that's the Midwest Preparedness Project. The difference in approach that we take, because you can go to that, and then the next weekend you can come to Self-Reliance Festival. And then 2 weeks after that is the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival. And we kind of call ourselves the Three Sisters because, yes, we have speakers. Yes, you can see demonstrations. Yes, you can participate in a parallel economy with other people who make the things that they make, that make high quality stuff. But the core underlying purpose of these events is to connect you with other people like you, so that more and more of our communities are strong all over the country. That's the difference. When I'm trying to explain the difference to people between us and other homesteading or preparedness efforts, that's it. Because you, the community, are much more important to be working together day to day to day than if you got to see John Willis speak or Nicole Sauce speak or Tag speak or Joel Salatin speak. That's pretty cool to watch too. But we'll be there and you can talk to us. And we, with purpose, will be asking who's from this state, who else is from this state. Can you guys talk to each other so that you go away with real relationships? Because your relationships are what matter the most. So for Independence Day, what I'm doing is developing relationships in Montana at Wheaton Labs and learning a whole bunch about natural building. And that's what I'm going to go do for the rest of the day and for the next few days is find more people who are like-minded, who understand why it's so important to be resilient. So guys, go out, do something for your freedom today. If nothing else, don't worry. I mean, if your thing is go light off a bunch of firecrackers, that's great. And I actually saw them advertised as firecrackers in Montana. That was fun. I haven't seen that word in a while. But go do that. But you know what else you should do is something that makes your life better today. What can you do to make your life better? So just keep that in mind. We will see you next week.